Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope.
The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything.
You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, the voice for the people. Join Richie alongside co-host property damage attorney Hans Kennon as they bring light to the taboo world of big insurance companies, exposing their tactics and fighting for justice. Hear stories from contractors across the state. Contractor Talk, here to protect homeowners and uncover the truth.
All right, that's a wonderful intro. I feel like Superman over here. It's Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Good evening. Welcome to the show. Thank you guys for joining us. A new radio dial for us, 94.9 FM, The Answer, all over the place here in this new studio, which is great. It's new to us.
Is it true they named it after us because we're The Answer?
We are The Answer, and that's why we're here to give
nice.
it. I love that. I love that segue. 9:50 a.m. on the dial, and then we take this and make it or can it podcast it out into the to the podcast world that lives and thrives today, and every streaming mechanism you can think of, from Spotify, iTunes, and on our website, contractortalkpodcast.com. You'll hear all of the episodes there. Spotify is my favorite. It's the easiest. You can do it from your phone, just like anything. iTunes, if Apple user, I'm more of a Spotify guy myself. But if you're a YouTuber as well, we have a YouTube page, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell there. And we have a great show for you set for today. It's our Christmas edition here. I feel holly jolly. Speaking of, so we have Hans Kennon. What's going on, Hans?
Oh, holidays are upon us. Trying to get people's claims settled for end of the year. We've seen some movement with the insurers. Also trying to close out their reserves, which is an interesting thing that most people don't know about. Reserves, when you make a claim, the insurance company has to put a certain amount aside. They call it the reserve. And basically that gets put aside into essentially another bank account. And they can't spend that until that account is cleared or that claim is settled. And toward the end of the year, they do like to get those reserves down because that goes to their liquidity, as the DFS likes to say, and determines whether or not they're able to conduct business into the next year. So we do see some movement, but in a post 3-hurricane season, we're seeing some different things from the trenches, and I think we have someone here to talk about that today.
Yeah, we do. And if it's your first time listening to the show, if you're new to us in the listening area, Hans Kennon is a lawyer, so make sure and always keep your phone out during the show because he'll spit some good information out. And some of the stuff you'll want to get your phone out and put a phone number in there, so you always have his number in case you have a question. You can always call us here. I think we have a phone number, studio line. Here we go, 407-774-8255. That's a live call-in number for right now. So that's a way to reach us. Call in, ask a question live on air. Again, 407-774-8255. If you're listening to us on a streaming somewhere, don't call. Anyway, so but I'm trying to get used to this again. We go from radio, then to straight podcast. We can cuss, we can do all the fun stuff, and then we're back on radio again. Not like it's not fun here, just that it's different, right? We have rules. Yeah, I don't like rules. But anyway, so if you're just listening to the show, I represent the contractors in the state of Florida through an association called Restoration Association of Florida. I'm also I own a contracting company, an indoor quality company. So I bring a lot of different, just knowledge and history to this to this show. We have Hans Kennon with Kennon Law Firm, and he's I call him a specialty niche type of attorney, where it's just but he's so much more so. With when we talk about property damage itself, there's a specialty to that, and not a lot of folks do well in that arena. Let me just say that to be nice, and somebody that understands it and that's down to earth, and somebody in our community. So, and other types of insurance disputes, because you also handle auto accidents and all that type of disputes.
Sure, life insurance, disability, and anything where your insurer has denied or underpaid a claim under your policy.
That's right. So we talk a lot here on this show, especially once the political season starts in the state of Florida. This year, it starts in March, Super Tuesday in March. Is that the Super Tuesday? Is that the end? But anyways, that's where it kicks off, and it goes for 60 days. Before that, you'll have committee weeks already coming in as early as January.
Yep.
They've already conferred and have some bills that have already been filed, so they're already to the races. And Hans, you're a part of the FJA, the Florida Justice Association, or the trial bar, like people like to call it. in the state of Florida. What's cooking there, and any late or any of the latest news that we may want to see or keep an ear out for?
Sure. Well, obviously, over the last couple of years, consumers have seen a lot, well, if not essentially all of their rights being taken away by the legislature. We have some changes this year. We have a new Speaker of the House, Danny Perez, and I think there's some more appetite to have the pendulum swing back a little bit from the insurer getting all the advantages to trying to give the consumer back at least a few. One of those is potentially the idea that the insurer would go back to paying me my time and my costs on your behalf if we're able to prevail against the insurer. And that was stripped away back in December of 2022. So hopefully that comes back. We'll see as session starts, but you never know. But hopefully we'll see a little change, as we talk about all the time. For all the bills that passed the last few years, not one of them required the premiums to be reduced. So prices continue to go up. Insurers continue to do well, generally speaking, in the market. They all have reinsurance, which is another topic we can talk about a little later. But I guess quick, your insurance company has an insurance company. So when they pay out a certain amount of claims, typically about $10 million, then the reinsurer, a big group of guys in Switzerland or London, step in and then pay the rest of those claims. So insurers should get, I think we're going to find out that they haven't been. I'm not sure what might have changed, but we don't see the insurers leaping to pay any money under either Milton or Helene or, was it Sally, Debbie, Little
Sally,
Debbie?
Jesse, Raphael.
One of those.
It's a great show.
But primarily through Helene and Milton, we're still seeing being a little tight-fisted. And again, I think our guest, who we have yet to reveal, will have some discussion about that for us today.
Right, and to your point, we've seen many law changes starting in 2021. Well, 2020 was Senate Bill 76 in 2021, and then the death nail in 2022, where we had many of the changes where it stripped the rights of consumers of having what they call in your world 627-428, which is the Florida statute for not even prevailing party.
No.
It is. They keep calling it the other side kept calling it a one-way attorney fee statute. In reality, it was prevailing party attorney fees that was awarded to a consumer. And think about this: if you have a dispute against your insurer and they're wrong, why do you, the consumer, have to pay that?
Have to pay out of your pocket for me to get what you're rightfully owed.
That's right. And then since 1893, I believe, was the Florida Supreme Court case law that came forth that put the difference between David and Goliath, where it said, listen, if we have this type of offset, the insurance companies have just billions of dollars against us. How do we then offset that? Will we go to for the peoples of the world, right? And how are you going to afford them unless you're able to get this contingency fee? And that's how they were able to ultimately be able to level up and have the same type of lawyer against the same type of creative billion-dollar backing law firms that you see today. I mean, consumer file suit for $10,000, and man, they bring out the warmongers up, to fight that, tooth and nail. And we've seen the avatars of the world, the insurance companies that enter in, fight everything, and they go out of business.
And then we're all blamed for the fact that an insurer like Avatar goes out of business. The fact that they were stingy, they didn't do a good job, fought everything, didn't make payments, and simply upset their insureds to the extent where look, if you get a letter in that says your claim is denied, and you can watch the stars while watching TV, that's not right. Now, what the insurers do, I think we're going to talk about, is they'll now say, oh, we're just a little under your deductible, or we're just a little over your deductible. And reasonable people go, well, at least they tried.
Right.
At least they tried. But when you say denied, which is what Avatar did, they denied essentially everything. People just go, wait a minute. That's not right. And they really make my phone ring. Some of the things they talk about is when you're just under or over the deductible, that's just a psychological ploy to make you think they actually tried.
Right. They read the book wrong. They were delay, deny, fight. So you'll see they entered the market at the wrong time too.
Yeah.
We had bad storms. But where I was going with that is that now we've had so much law change to the insurance companies. You think that they would drop rates and or then treat our consumers fairly on the subsequent storms. But that's what we are going to talk about tonight here is now we see these the article articles now coming out showing that more and more insurance companies, not just State Farm or not just the big ones like Citizens and such, that you'll see with big numbers from 1.4 million policies down finally under 1 million policies nowadays with their takeout program. But they've grossly underpaid homeowners. They have changed their methods a little bit. Now, to your point, now instead of just flat out denying, now they're going saying, you know what? Oh man, thank you for filing this claim, but your deductible is $8,000. We think there was like $7,800 worth of damage. So good luck. We're not writing you a check, but we recognize that you have damage, and we're sorry about your loss. This should fix it. Here's nothing.
Right.
And so then that changes the way we look at it, but it also took away a lot of things. Those law changes, bad faith, and you have Citizens owned by the state of Florida is immune from bad faith anyway. So there's no multiple there to really put on the stronghold against the insurance companies. As you see on the legal side of things, there are ways to get insurance companies to pay. And that's if they have to pay more money if they're wrong. You were able to say, hey, my attorney's fees are compounding. Every time that I submit or go to an extra hearing or have to respond to something, my demand goes higher and higher and higher. And so then they finally make the agreement and they pay you. And now you don't have that hammer. Now they can literally take for years, take you years and years, and then finally take you up to the trial steps and then try to settle with you at that point. That's Citizens.
Or even these days, but Citizens, they'll just go try cases because if they lose, all they got to do is pay what they owed anyway, right? On a lot of these claims. I mean, the fact they have to pay me, I believe from the article I saw last week, I think, and I may be off on this, and I apologize. I think they either made $800 million last quarter or have $800 million for the year as profit. Either way, that's a lot of money. And
either way, their surplus is in the billions with a B.
There you go. But their actual profit, I think maybe for the quarter was like $746 million. I mean, if they paid, I mean, it's state run. I mean, they run it like it's a profit center for the state. It's there to help people who can't get other coverage. Really, they can't put some money toward helping people pay a claim. Almost everything with Citizens is a full denial. Most of the time, they're a full denial carrier.
Yeah, and nowadays they do that. And so folks don't know where to go. And again, we all sat back and thought, okay, well, there's going to be so many changes. Carriers are going to have to do the right thing. And we have 2 storms coming through. Yes, there's a lot of flood. And we'll talk about Citizens because they were then found to have 77% denial rate. Yeah. And of course, they come out and say something like, oh, yeah, it was because if we give you a denial in your flood, then you can go to your wind policy and get covered that way. That's the reason why our numbers were up. I think that's a facade. That's a lie. That's for them to cover this up. But really, people don't know where to go, what to do. And so finally now they know, of course, you can always go to lawyers, but folks don't want to go to lawyers right off the bat.
Right.
So they don't know, and now they're starting to know that there's another way. Other people that are called public adjusters can come help you the public consumer that have an insurance claim or thinking about filing an insurance claim and you want to understand what's going on in your policy. It's hard to call your insurance agent and talk to them about what type of coverages they will cover you for in reality, because they're like, yeah, just like the State Farm guy, oh, you're in good hands, or yeah, we'll cover everything. I'm a good neighbor. Everything's good. But you find out that that's not the case when you really go to file a claim. You'll find out that your agent can't do anything at all. They're trying to be your cheerleader, but really they don't have your best interest at heart. They only have they don't want to get cut off from their mothership, you know? So where do you go? And if you're listening now and you haven't heard of what a public adjuster can do, Andre is here today on our show to talk about this and to tell you what you can do within your policy or give you some insight and some contact information in case you have a claim. You had to file within 1 year of the date of loss. That's correct. And you have 18 months thereafter to ensure that you have all of your estimates in. And sometimes you don't know that you have now 60 days to produce a sworn proof of loss and such like that. So there is another way. So Andre, welcome to the show. What's going on, man?
Hey, appreciate the intro, and thanks for having me on again. Excited to be here. So I'm Andre Kraut with In-House Adjusting, and you can find us at inhouseadjusting.com/homeowner. And you're 100% right. With Citizens specifically, where we're coming from is, Hurricane Ian. We got a lot of repair estimates that were maybe a little bit over deductible, and we had a lot of power then, if you will, to fight against those. But what we're seeing this time around is exactly like you're saying, to where they're not making payments at all. They're denials or they're underpayments to homeowners, And even when we get involved, a lot of times what we're getting is these homeowners are saying, well, they did try, and aren't they right? Aren't they supposed to do the right thing? And then we almost feel like a bad guy coming in saying like, no, they're 5 times off, because a lot of times that's where they're at.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a new game.
Right. I always compare it to standing in the long DMV line.
Yep.
Not only do they not care, but when you get up to the front, it's always like they ask you for something that somebody else told you that they weren't asking for. Or they were, something, and you're like, are you kidding me right now? And then you have to go back, get whatever, and come back into that line that nobody cares about, that you're at the end of that again. It's just that way with Citizens. They're owned by the state of Florida. They're governed by the same rules, it seems like OIR is. It's crap. And to your point, you do then seem like the bad guy. We do seem at that at first, because we come walking in the forefront of a claim to help somebody out. I even try to softly help my friends out that are having a claim. Hey, let me know if you need help. And it's a year later when they're like, yeah, my guy screwed me over. My adjuster first told me everything with flowers and roses. And, and next thing you know, I'm getting ghosted. We got underpaid, and we started to get letters. And now some other engineer is coming out from some other company we didn't ask for. And next thing you know, I have a letter of denial. And they're way past their times. They don't know that there's certain timetables, certain time limits that they have to respond to. And but yeah, when we finally get involved, they're like, well, just like what you said, I thought they were going to do the right thing. They seemed so nice. And again, guys, know the difference between your agent and the actual carrier. Your agent's fantastic. Or always will be. They'll answer the phone call at day or night, whenever, but they don't have any power. Your agent doesn't. They can call your carrier for you, but the carrier's going to do what they do, and that's going to be save money for their company. And they'll do that by hiring these third-party, they call them TPAs, third-party agents, adjusters, however you want to say it, that they go out and they'll adjust the claim, and they'll turn that back into the desk adjuster for the insurance company, who then reviews that and then decides on if they want to pay for certain things or not, have them change it again to then get to your bottom dollar. And so it's by time you get involved as a public adjuster to where you do the estimate in what real value is, which is their Florida given right, or at least in statute, to say that if you have an HO3 policy, you get RCV coverage, which was replacement cost value, what it costs today to replace it. And I love Hans' analogy, as if, it's different on a television or a pen or something like that, to where the value is now less. The television is what we think of today, because now they've gotten so cheap, where you can buy a 50-inch TV for a couple $100 nowadays. But back then, say 8-10 years ago, your television was thousands of dollars for the same size, whatever. So some things are different in value today, but more things go up. The cost of replacing your roof, cost of replacing flooring, walls, those things get very pricey. And if you don't have the right estimator that knows how to estimate apples and apples, and this, what they call Xactimate, what the insurance companies use as a software to itemize the scope and pricing set by State Farm. You got to love that State Farm owned that product, owned that software, and sold it. But they essentially are setting prices based on their vendors, that they beat them down in prices to average it out for the whole, to give us a price within the software. So
one example I always use for folks for Xactimate to talk about scope. When you do auto repair work, an auto body shop has about 7 steps, give or take, to remove a fender, strip the fender, reprime the fender, reshoot it, then sand it, then clear it, then sand it and clear it, and then put it back on the car. And they can have 7 or 8 steps. And what the insurer does is they go, well, we think that's 3 steps. You take it off, repaint it, put it back on. And you're like, what about everything else involved in this? Like, and this is the term they use. They're just included operations. So when we talk about Xactimate, which is a program that kind of really everybody uses, it gets manipulated mostly by use of scope. So we may all agree the roof might need to be replaced, or you have some interior damage, but somehow when it's going to cost you $2,500 to get your room redone, they give you $500. They're like, well, all that other stuff they're talking about, it's all included. Like, we include all these things.
The cost of doing business, they say.
Exactly, yeah. So they'll take, so again, it's important to understand when you look at an estimate by the insurer and it's just under your deductible, and you go, well, look, they looked at 3 bedrooms, they looked at the kitchen, and they have amounts in there for everything needs to be fixed. That's not what needs to be fixed. What needs to be fixed is a lot more. They just include all those things, cost of doing business, included operations. They do all these things to make you think, again, that they really tried. When they say, all you need to do is repaint that wall. Well, that's more than just painting. I mean, there are things, if you have damage to it, maybe cutting out drywall, replacing drywall, retexturing the drywall, finishing that in, then priming it and painting it. That's what it takes to do. But you'll look at an estimate and say, they looked at every room, they put a dollar amount for everything that needs to get done. It's just under. And in fact, it's just wildly under.
Right. And that's what we're seeing with many of the big carriers, and more adding to it. I pick on State Farm a lot just because they're glowing in most of every state. But in Florida, they our laws allow for the company, the national company, to just have a Florida-based company. So if that one tanks, it doesn't mess up the rest of the country. And so and where they do other states, because it was found that Florida is very volatile, even though those numbers are way off and skewed. But for the amount of policies, we'll go into all that stuff at a later time, especially when we get into the political season, because all these law changes are based on quote unquote the numbers that come out about lawsuits and claims filed in the state of Florida. Many of these are skewed for them to get the oomph they need to get these laws changed. And so, anyways, we today you'll see that not only State Farm, Heritage, Citizens all made headlines. Allstate, I believe. Big carriers that came out to show 50%, around that 50% already of denial on the recent storms. We're talking about Helene, and we're talking about Milton coming through Florida and through Georgia and many of these states. Florida specifically, we're looking at those numbers, 6.5 million HO3 policies in the state of Florida. And now we have condo issues. That's what we're going to be talking about mostly as we get forward into the political session in March, is that much is on this rising assessments and all that kind of stuff. But we see that we first started to see that in the residential policies with those premiums going up and up. And it was, again, to start a fake crisis here from the that David Altmaier was behind on that he used to run the Office of Insurance Regulation, is now got a cushy job at a national.
What's he doing? What's he doing now, Richie? He
is now a lobbyist for a national insurance-based and funded company.
You mean, so when he had the job, he was helping out his friends in the insurance industry?
He sure was. It's so hard to not cuss on this show. But yeah, he enrages me so much, because it was like all of these changes where he was behind, all of this fake crisis stuff. He was behind. They know exactly, and we called it out before the headlines started changing, is that you started to see these insurance companies get these these approvals from OIR, 50%, 60% increases, and none of it made any of the OIR websites. Apparently, you're supposed to, any increase over 15%, it's supposed to have a public hearing, and folks like us that are very interested in all this should be able to attend these hearings. But I'll tell you what, not one of them made the website at all. Not one public hearing was set, but yet every insurance company had saw 50, 60, 80, 100% increases across the state, across the line. And some of them, even Tower Hill came out to one of their main executives, came out to say that, hey, we didn't seek this 50% increase. It was given to us by the state of Florida. I mean, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So we saw this fake crisis start to wind up, and however, the folks that can't, like Universal Insurance, are publicly traded, they were still spitting out their normal numbers. Hey, we sold $1 billion last year. We have $34 to $36 million quarterly profits and gains. Like, we're good, So still, how we still were able to get past all the legislatures, all the people, and get them fooled to think that we can actually reduce rates where there was no or premium reduction. Those words were never together in any of the hundreds of pages of bills that made it through in the past couple of years. So here we are stuck with now the aftermath of all the law changes and no changes. Now we see Citizens is up to 77% declination rate on every claim filed. Can you imagine that? Only maybe three out of 10 claims actually go through if you have Citizens insurance. Isn't that great? All right, so we have our guest today, Andre, with In-House Public Adjusting. So if you have a question and you want to give us a call, our call-in number is 407-774-8255. We're here for the next half hour, 407-774-8255. And so we still have more with you today on this topic here that we on the Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. So don't touch that dial. Man, I got to really get this timing down. We'll be right back after the break.
You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell.
All right, and we're back. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. So much good info. We're just kind of spitballing right now on our break. And welcome back to the show. We have Andre with In-House Adjusting, and we also have Hans Kennon with Kennon Law Firm. And we were discussing before and during the break, talking about the different policies that are here in the state of Florida. We talked about the HO3 policies that we have here, which is your basic residential home insurance policy, and 6.5 million of those exist here. There's a lot of condo policies. There's a lot of surplus lines, commercial policies themselves, and so and DP3 policies, rental policies, all this kind of stuff. And so it's hard to navigate those things. And so there's two different professions here that's legal in the state of Florida to talk to you, the consumer, about questions you might have in your policy as regards to coverage. So if this happens, then am I covered for this? Can you review my policy? Tell me what exists in the policies. And that's where you can call. Everybody knows you can call an attorney. Most people don't know that public adjusters exist today. And so they're gaining more popularity, especially now with the laws changes the way they are. And people don't understand that it really is still a no recovery, no fee kind of situation on both accounts. But how do we get started if you want to open a claim or have property damage to get that started? Because how difficult is it after a storm to get 3 painters, 3 roofers, 3 contractors to come out and give you an estimate for replacement cost? And before the break, I mentioned that the state of Florida allows for us to have in our HO3 policies what they call RCV, replacement cost value, given within the HO3 policy. So it just automatically exists. And so ACV, actual cost value, is a depreciation of this RCV. So meaning that I mentioned depreciation. I talked about the television that 2 years ago you're going to spend a couple thousand. Today you spend a couple hundred. That is different than the value of what it costs to replace your roof today. What it costs to replace drywall, flooring, what it costs now in fuel to get those products to you. Manufacturing costs have gone up, labor has gone up. So those things have to come in account to this RCV cost. And what we were mentioning before the break is how much more often now the insurance companies are just lowballing folks, using this software called Xactimate to write out the scope and just leaving out line items. And that's what they famously do. How do you reduce the overall ball, right? Is by reducing the line items on that. And so then you're like, here, your deductible is $8,000 because you're 2 or 5% deductible on the hurricane, and then we owe you $7,000. We agree that there are damages. So most people look at that and they say, well, man, they sure did try. And the guy was really nice that came out and they opened up coverage and all this stuff. And man, my deductible is too high. I guess I'll remember that for next time and get a lower deductible policy for the next storm. But no, that's not right. You can have somebody come out and reevaluate your claim, give estimates against this insurance company, and to pull a page out of Hans' book. It's like if you don't have an indifference, if you don't have a disputed amount, then they don't owe you anything. If they say, here's your $7,000 payment out of $8,000 deductible, and you don't come back with them with any disputed amount and say, no, actually, I think it's worth $20,000, and here are my estimates to back it up. There's no dispute, therefore it doesn't move forward.
And then if that 6-month period, that 18-month period elapses, you're not allowed to supplement your claim whatsoever.
Right.
And you're bound by whatever that is. But so, Andre, I guess for people looking for someone who provides your services, tell us what you do for the folks who may not know what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one point that's important to make is that as a public adjuster, we don't have to get involved once you've gotten that denial, once you've gotten that underpayment, because a lot of times the insurance company at that point has closed your claim on their end. Although we can reopen it, you're now reset in line, let's call it, to the very back. So they've done their due diligence as far as making coverage, even though it's below deductible, they didn't make a payment. Now you're all the way in the back of this line to where the timelines no longer exist. So I think it's important for homeowners to know that we can get involved before you file the claim, once the claim is still pending coverage, and as well as after the claim. We offer free policy reviews, and that's really important because I'll give you an example of my grandfather. 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, he was actually about to go into open heart surgery and having to deal with this, but he was getting a policy from his agent, and he had me review it. I looked through this policy, and there's a screen enclosure exclusion, right? Of course, for a hurricane, when the only time it would, be damaged, right?
But otherwise, they're happy to pay for it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he had that on there, and he just was asking me, "Hey, what does this mean?" And I was like, "Well, if hurricane comes, your screen enclosure is not included." And at the same time, the agent was telling him it is. And I ran this by my attorney as well, just to double check my work. And at the end of the day, us on the claim side, we know, hey, they're going to deny that, regardless if even maybe they shouldn't. They're going to, because it says pretty straightforward, hey, it's not covered during the hurricane, right? So preemptively making sure that you have your policy in line before the disaster happens, before the loss happens, is the most important thing. That's a service we offer for free. But outside of that, as a public adjuster, we are a no recovery, no fee basis, meaning when your insurance company gives you a below deductible coverage determination, then we get involved. And if we don't get you any money, we don't owe you, or you don't owe us anything at all, right? So,
right. And the best thing that you provide is that indifference, that estimate, that it's an apples to apples comparison. We've talked about this exactimate. What is that? And that is that scope, or that per line item detailed estimate. That's how they like to say, detailed line item estimate of scope and services to be provided, right? And so when they lay out this scope, you're just putting in the scope details, and it spits out the amount of money for that, so much per square foot. You don't set the price for that. The Xactimate software sets the price. You literally put in the scope, and it sets the pricing. So that's why it tries to make it fair, so you do compare apples to apples on this Xactimate software. So that's one of the specialties that you provide for the homeowner. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And that's why when we get involved with the claim, we're going to let the homeowner know, hey, maybe they did do it right. That's not too often, but, there's a lot of claims we'll walk into to where we say, hey, this is not too far off. You're probably good here, right? But if we're not, let us create an estimate for you and then decide to work with us, right? If you find that our estimate is 4 times as much as theirs, then we'll look at both of them and say, hey, where do you think, what's wrong? What's missing, right? And we can clearly see that.
That's right.
And that's when people will make the decision to really work with us, because it's a kind of a no-brainer at that point.
I guess one thing too, if they've already received money, do you take a portion of that money?
No, it's a great question. So we only get paid on the additional funds we get. So if, once again, there's
new money, how they say
new money,
Right.
exactly. Yep. So in most cases, we're going to get a lot of extra money just because they're starting so low and they're so far off, especially with this new year, like you're saying, regarding the depreciation on payment schedules, on just how they break down their claims. By the time they have the deductible taken out, by the time they have the depreciation, even if it's recoverable taken out, they're way below anything they owe.
And on recoverable depreciation, if you could explain that to the folks who might not know what that's about.
Yeah, absolutely. The recoverable depreciation is going to be, so if you have a standard HO3 policy, which most people do have, that means that they're going to pay today's market value to replace whatever it is. Let's use an example of a roof, right? So if the roof costs $20,000 in today's market value, if it's 15 years old, well, they're still going to pay for the replacement in today's value. The insurance company is going to make that payment, though, on an actual cash value basis, meaning they're going to hold back some depreciation until the work is done, and then you'll get that final payment. And that's one of those things where homeowners also don't really understand, because they get a check, and let's say the roof is $20,000 minus deductible minus depreciation, and they say, hey, I got $10,000, this is all they're paying. Well, you actually had $9,000 over here in recoverable depreciation, which we can help you get on the back end and make sure that your out of pocket is reduced.
Right, and that's a good point that people don't understand when they do get that check come in. And there's two parts on that. That recoverable depreciation is owed once you prove that the service has been provided, whatever that is, with the roof, the repairs have been done. But if you end up getting short of that, let's say the contractor comes back and says, "Hey, in replacing your roof, we found a couple of boards up there that we had to replace." That creates what they call a supplement. In the GC world, it's change order, right? So we're telling the homeowner, hey, we the first 1 or 2, 4x8 sheets of these plywood that we put down for the sheathing comes complimentary. After that, we're starting to charge you, and that's what most roofers do. And so if you have to change out a lot of the sheathing, then extra costs come up. And let's say then additional stuff is found. There's a truss that's twisted or whatever like that, which we see a lot on the engineering side of things when they say, hey, listen, or we're changing roof types and we need to shore up some studs, whatever it is. Sometimes additional things are needed. On the replacement side of it, though, let's say if while they are, there are things that you can't discover until the repairs are being done. The other reason why you would want to use a public adjuster is to ensure that you get that difference paid, because it is kind of confusing when you're reading what money you have minus the depreciation that is forthcoming, plus the amount that they missed, and plus the amount of supplement. So it's just like, it's a little bit of weird formula.
So a lot of numbers everywhere.
Right. And it's something that you do every day. So don't, I think even taking the percentage out, you're going to come up ahead of it. If even when I have a claim in my house, I'm a public adjuster, I haven't had that time yet, try to keep good care of everything. But absolutely, because it's like, hey, I don't want to handle that. And somebody else can do a much better job looking at it, getting an estimate of all the damages that could come from that, So I'm glad you do what you do. And have you seen an increase of I guess calls based on this and the questions on their policy? On the break, we talked about these exclusions and limitations and things that are in policies. Are your clients getting hung up on these types of exclusions and limitations?
Yeah, I would say unfortunately it's gone to such a high degree that at this point I'm asking my clients, hey, would you mind writing some type of letter that I can provide to someone like you that you can take up to Tallahassee and say, hey, we have 400 people that, wrote a response to their claim from Hurricane Milton and said, who sold me this policy with this endorsement on here that I had no idea about? And the most common I'm running into are the roof surface payment schedules, which are
unconstitutional.
Would make sense, right? Yeah. Exactly. So you have a standard HO3 policy, which is supposed to pay replacement costs. Right. And then they sneak in this endorsement on the 54th page of 57 that says, but actually for your roof only, we're going to depreciate it and we're not going to pay you that depreciation. On top of that, they're going to take the percentage they're paying and then they're going to pay the deductible or factor your deductible in. So therefore, the cost you're getting is really, really low, or if anything.
And what I find often is that the letters that the client will receive essentially says well, they have the roof schedule, meaning they reduce the percentage of replacement costs that they'll pay for the roof as time elapses. And I've had clients call me and go, "Hey, Ernie, the letter basically says congratulations, we're covering your entire roof. Here's $5,000." And they go, "Well, but they say they're going to cover the whole roof and pay for the whole roof. But I only got $5,000." I go, "I bet you have we talk about a roof surface schedule. Since your roof is 15 years old, they're only going to pay 25% of the replacement cost." And again, it's the same type of thing where they're basically saying, we did everything we could. In fact, if you didn't have this endorsement, we would have paid all of your roof, but you have the endorsement. So since you have the endorsement, we're still going to buy you a new roof, but at a reduced rate. And people just call me and they go, "I don't know how I can only get $5,000 after they said they're going to buy me a brand new roof."
Tell me you're able to get them the rest of the money on that. That endorsement is BS. For sure.
Some you can. I mean, some folk. Look, a lot of folks want to get resolution. I mean, your home is. I always say, well, when I get to my house, even with my 5 kids home and the 2 dogs, when the door closes behind me, I still like to think that I have some form of sanctuary, right? Some sort of protection from the world outside. So a lot of people, they'd like to get it done. I think, Andre, you'll find the same thing. People, we do this for a living. If I have to go litigate a case for the next 2 years, I'm like, okay, we'll put it with the other 100 I have, and we're going to go march down the road and go do that. Most folks just want it done. And unfortunately for a lot of folks who get that letter where they say, we've done what we can, or we're just under deductible, it's over deductible, people want to believe. They want to believe in their insurer. They want to believe in engineering. They want to believe in all these institutions, and say, well, let's not fuss. Let's not fight. We'll take the money out of the bank account. And we'll buy our own roof. So a lot of folks, even with a roof schedule endorsement, well, they should be calling me or calling Andre and saying, look, this isn't right. No one requires you to go into litigation. No one requires you to go to trial as far as that goes. The insurers know that I'll go try a case, and so I think that's helpful to my clients. But we get a lot of stuff done in pre-suit, as does Andre, obviously, in the work that he does. So we can usually get you a very, very good result, substantially better than where you are today. People come to me all the time, and I'll go, okay, we can agree you're at 0 today. And if at the end of that mediation, we're at 80% or 85%, and people will say to me, Mr. Kennon, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, I'll go try your case. If you want that last little bit, the insurer's not going to pay today, we'll go try the case. But if you lose or something goes bad, and things go bad in trial too, it may not go well. And they go, well, why would I want to go into litigation for that last little bit? And I go, I'm not telling you should. I'm telling you I will. My job is I work for you. You want your day in court. You want a chance to tell a jury what your thoughts are and potentially bring a bad faith claim later. We'll go do that. You want resolution. You want to get your roof fixed and kind of go back to the way things were, which is what most people want. We're happy to help you with that. And Andre does essentially the exact same function at that point.
Yeah, I think there's a great point that even the insurance companies, sometimes positive towards them, you won't hear that too often, but a lot of times they also want to get it done. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of the benefit of hiring, you and I is that if you have a roof payment schedule, right, and they're saying, hey, we're going to pay 25% of this cost of the roof, then when we get involved, they still want to settle this claim, especially pre-suit. So we're usually getting more like 60 to 75%, which is not 100%, which they should be getting, and what they would be right, I would say. Right. But at the end of the day, we're still able to negotiate enough because we have the expertise of working with these insurance companies. We know how they all operate. So that 10% that we're charging and the fees on your side are still irrelevant to the extra costs we're going to get.
Well, I mean, I think the key being you're always better with us than without us. There's never a day has come where someone has said, I'm going into battle by myself and fight against an enemy that knows all the tricks of the trade. I think I can handle this myself. It's a little bit of he represents himself as a fool for a client. If you want to go to mediation on your own with an insurance company that does this 1,000 times a day because you think you got it figured out, you just don't. And there's a line from the movie Rounders about poker playing, and Matt Damon says as he narrates the film, if you're playing poker, you don't know who the sucker is, it's you.
That's right.
And that's a little harsh, but I'm just telling you, you go and they're going to offer you. Well, people call me and they'll say, Mr. Kennon, why should I hire you and pay you a percentage? I'll say, what's going on? I have mediation coming up. And I'll say, tell you what, you go to mediation by yourself. And I said, because they're going to offer you maybe $2,000, $2,500. Maybe you'll hit the buzzer and get $5,000 offered to you. But if they offer you all the money you need, you call me tomorrow and tell me, because you'll be the one guy who got it done. I said, I don't want to go with you if you don't want me to. I don't want to take money from you. If you think you can do it by yourself and you're the one guy who does, then call me back tomorrow because you're going to be a hero to me because no one's ever done that before. And they always call back the next day and go, you were right. They offered me $2,500 and told me that was all they were ever going to pay. And I go, that's right. There you go. So,
yeah. Some of them have a magic number, and it's funny that they do that every time. Every PFS I've got is $250, $500, $100. Right. You gotta love that. But it's the numbers that. I mean, they obviously know the numbers of the folks that will actually do something that'll take it to the next level. So for them, if they deny what we've seen in the papers, representing 50%,
75%,
right, and only a certain percentage of those folks actually do something about it, they're in a big position or in a big winning position to where they can afford to get sued several times and still not break the bank at all for those guys. So it's unfortunate that we still today that the consumers then still try to allow time for their insurance company to do the right thing, and still not wanting to move forward and still taking out money out of their savings account or getting a loan that they will never get reimbursed for. And what I tell people is that, hey, if you want to put your roof on before storm season, go ahead and do it. You still want to work with a public adjuster or an attorney and get reimbursed. And many of the times, if you do it right, your interest that you paid out during that time of the loan is reimbursable. And so there are things that you can you work with your attorney or public adjuster to get that reimbursement on your insurance claim, and to know that if you are looking for insurance after that, they always ask you, what are your loss runs? Right, and your loss runs include losses or claims that you file within a policy period. And guess what doesn't count? Hurricane claims. So that does not account against you. Your act of God claims, right? Those things don't count against you on your loss run. So if you have a claim for Hurricane Hilton, you like how I merged those together now? Helene and Milton. But if you...
if they had a baby, it'd be called Hilton.
That would be. That's the next hurricane storm that's coming through. But if you have one of those named storm claims, that doesn't count against you. So next time you're looking for insurance and they say, how many losses have you had? You say zero.
People call me and they'll say, well, I don't, we talk about they'll have a non-hurricane claim, oddly enough, and they'll call me and I'll say, well, what happened to Milton? Well, we had more damage, but I know the deductible's more, but we don't want to make another claim because they're going to drop us. And I talked about the fact that those types of catastrophic level claims don't really work against you. The biggest fear people have today is getting canceled and not having an ability, or non-renewed, and not having the ability to get new coverage. That's really everyone's fear. And I tell them, look, if you can afford to do it, or you can work out something, get your roof replaced. It's always the roof. I mean, it's never anything else. It's always the roof. You get your roof replaced, everyone will sign you up almost.
That's right.
At this point. So I said, but you got to get the house watertight. You got to get the roof done. We know people who do financing. We people who will do it literally, like I said, on a retail basis. And then we've helped many people get the money back that they paid, because insurers don't like cases in litigation where the insured has paid to replace the roof, because they've stepped up. The lawyer can't say to the jury, he's never going to buy that roof. He's never going to do it. He's not going to spend the money. Put your money where your mouth is if you can, not a requirement, but if you can. And the insurance company doesn't like the idea that they're going to look at a jury and go, don't pay him back.
Yeah. You know, in one case, I'm helping out a friend of a friend who we ended up doing the engineering report for him, but a tree limb fell on his house, broke several areas of the roof, water damage, the whole thing. Had Citizens insurance. Their Citizens came out and awarded them. They adjusted the claim, awarded them $11,000. Now, we're talking about a $24,000 roof. I know this because they actually went and got the roof replaced. So they took the money and said, they even called me and said, well, what do we do? Because your invoice amount wasn't even listed in the $11,000 that they gave me as full and complete payment. So what do we do? They didn't know what to do. And so I was able to help them out. We sent out an estimator to do a different calculation of the estimates based off of what they had, and showed them what the indifference was. We were able to get them to an appraisal. It's very different than a mediation, but where each side hires an appraiser, one from the carrier side, one from the homeowner, and the appraiser just called me back and said, hey, I just want to let you know, and then you're helping out your friend. We just got awarded $46,000. And he said, I would have gotten you more, but they already replaced the roof. So we got full RCV value on the roof. There were some interior damages that they didn't pay, and they stiffed the restoration contractor. So they were able to get the restoration person that dried out the inside and cut out some drywall paid in full, and got a little and got the homeowners reimbursed.
Look, and that's the type of result we talk about all the time here. When they're basically offering you nothing, and you're like, okay, it doesn't cost you anything to call someone like myself or call Andre. It's simply curiosity alone. Just if the curiosity brings you to us, just go, what do you think about this? And we're always going to say, and there's going to be 5 out of 100. We're going to go, hey, they did the right thing, or at least they paid enough. All the time, we're going to tell you they didn't do good enough by you. They have an obligation to do that, and you shouldn't let them just treat you poorly. Or if you don't know if they treated you poorly, odds are they treated you poorly. If you don't know the answer, then come to someone like myself or Andre who can tell you what the answer is. And what's the worst thing that happens? We tell you no, or we get you more money.
That's right. That's right. And either way, you both are saying there's a free case evaluation as well. So it really doesn't doesn't cost anything to get your policy reviewed. And to your point, you should review your policy and see what exclusions or different types of things, like you were mentioning about the screen enclosure. Was it your grandfather's policy?
Yeah, exactly.
And not knowing that the one time that you do need it, which is after a major storm or event like a named storm, such as a hurricane, under that hurricane policy, they didn't have any coverage for that cage, and you want that. It's one thing that's definitely going to go down is your pool cage. And we've talked about, Hans, on prior shows about this she shed situation. They call it coverage B for your additional buildings, but a lot of times they put $8,000 or $10,000 on there. But if you have an RV in there, or a car, you have a bunch of tools and things like that, and like what happened in one of your clients' cases, are literally a plane falls out of the sky and crashes into their she shed, and everything inside of it's messed up, and he only had a little bit of coverage. So it's like, I never thought about that.
And one thing too, real quick, I know when I go to sit with mediation with Citizens, there's one adjuster who always tells my client how much coverage they have. Well, Hans, we're here today on the Smith's policy, and they have $350,000 in dwelling coverage, so plenty of coverage to take care of the home. And they say that, and my clients go, wow, I don't really know I had that much money. I go, don't worry, you can't get that much.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll never access that
unless your house burns to the ground. You're never going to.
And even then.
Yeah,
they'll
it's funny, though. He always says the amount of coverage, and my clients are always like, wow, we got a lot of coverage. Yeah, but because of the policies, exclusions, and things like that, like I said, you can never get to that amount. But I know we're running a little low on time. How do people get in touch with you? They want to talk to you, Andre.
Yeah, the easiest way to get in touch with us is a direct number. It's 321-977-1373. That's our office number. You can call or text there. Also, you can check us out online, inhouseadjusting.com/homeowners. We have great Google reviews, so kind of take a look, see how people's experiences have been in the past. And, we would love to speak to anybody. We can, once again, set up time to do any policy reviews, any claim reviews. We offer all of that for free. So
that's awesome.
Doesn't cost
That's
you
awesome. And like you said, no recovery, no fee. So even if you get involved with the client, do all the estimates for them, do some work meeting with the other adjuster and all that stuff, and they still get nothing at the end of the day. There's no cost, no invoice from you going to the homeowner.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I hear that's the same thing over at your shop there, Hans.
It is the same. And if folks want to talk to me about policies, my name's Hans Kennon. I always tell people to get your phone out. My cell phone is 407-782-0258, 407-782-0258. Just put in Hans Kennon Lawyer and my phone number. And whenever you have a lawyer need, you dial that number, and we try to help you if we can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And our message is to the consumers, to the more knowledge that you have, the more power you have. Knowledge is power when it comes to this insurance claim type of arena, where most of the time it's once in a lifetime, once every 10 years, somebody has to deal with this type of event, a natural disaster in their home. I guess unless you live on the west side of Florida. Those poor guys over there just getting beaten up the last couple of years. But that's how little that folks have this experience, and so it's good to have somebody, a professional in your phone, ready to go. I'm your host here at Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Just again, trying to provide the best information to the consumer to know who to call, what to do when you have an event like this today. Continue to listen to us. Again, you can find us on our website, contractortalkpodcast.com. You can find us on our website, as well as our social media, YouTube, our social media, Facebook, Instagram accounts, all that stuff. And if you're just turning into the show now or tuning into the show now and you want to hear us, the full show, check us out on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you can stream in the next day or two, and our podcast will be live. Thanks again for joining us. We'll talk to you guys later.